This is a Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God.
The frame is not the gift. Be not deceived by the most superficial aspects of this thought system, for these aspects enclose the whole complete in every aspect. Death lies in this glittering gift. Let not your gaze dwell on the hypnotic gleaming of the frame. Look at the picture and realize that death is offered you. Well, yeah, I mean, in that last example, I would say that's exactly what I felt. Felt like death.
Okay,
know?
but listen, what's great about you, and I mean this, is that you're available to that revelation. You know, it's not everyone is. Some people's defenses are so meticulously crafted. To be honest with you, yours are not. You know, they are not meticulously crafted because you're not really interested. Ironically, it seems like you have a personality character. I don't want to get into analyzing you, but the fact that it's such an easy one to identify is some part of you that is available to inspection, you know, for yourself and others.
Right.
There is a kind of an openness. There's a certain amount of transparency, you know, and whereas in my own life, it's very difficult for me to find the painful places. I really have a hard time. You can nail them. You've got several on the tip of your tongue.
Well, I mean, it's not like I didn't do some work back then. I did about those things, and I did have to look at it.
Well, I've done a ton of work.
Yeah.
I still can't sit here and say, well, that was I bumped up against a wall there or there or there or there. I don't have that available to me, and I'd say that I have a more studied and sophisticated construction.
A defense
Of a frame. Yeah. And I'm also, I keep in my frame, there's a certain amount of detachment that I keep, you know, I play it very lightly, understanding, you know, so it's not as easy for me to create an illustration. So let me take a minute because I don't want to brush on. Where have I been wrecked? I've got to find a place where I have that devastation beyond the relationships, some place where I've held this thing. When do I feel it? You know, because it's brooding. Okay, the dark thing, the dark awakening, is always a potential. I mean, I would say
any form of real betrayal about another is always a sense of like, I need to wake up. So for you, I mean, for me, I would say you don't know your wife when she buys the Mercedes, okay? And all of a sudden it's like, who is this person who I'm involved in? There's usually a kind of like a betrayal about something that you don't understand what you're involved in. I didn't understand. I said, I obviously don't know that person who just wants to leave
I'm gonna take a shot. That at its foundation, and I don't have a well-developed vocabulary for this. At its foundation, I feel that I am unlovable. I'm undeserving of love, and I'm too funky, I'm too ugly, I'm too not good enough somewhere. It's an ambiguous, you know, blob of unlovableness. And I've got all the proof for this unlovableness. Now, I've learned over time how to compensate, how to be charming on a certain point or measure. I've figured out how to play my cards, or how to defend, or how to attack, and I've played a certain game with everything. I gamed basketball. I've gamed anything. I was artwork. I've gamed art. I gamed art. So I've done everything to recognize I am unlovable. I will do what it takes to get love. I will do what it takes. And the thing is, I know threaded into that is love, 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 love. But really, it's money, it's approval, it's strokes. It's never love.
Right.
It's never love. You can't earn love.
Well, I would say you hit the nail on the head for the majority of people, because the majority of people have an aspect of the self that are just going to say, well, if people knew this about me, and what it is that it's the recognition that I don't like that part of myself. I am unlovable in that place. I'm, for some reason, the past includes, a sense of being damaged, or, nobody would want me if they knew this part.
Well, let me jump in. Okay. So if I'm out, and let's say I, quote unquote, read my mind reading is something I developed in order to, and I did, I'm pretty good at reading minds. They say you can't read my mind. I'm pretty good,
Yeah, because you read the clues along the way.
Yeah, I mean, people would say, how did you know that? I mean, we're supposed to, right? When I went to the counselor with my ex-wife back 15 years ago, whenever this was, we sat down and we were supposed to both write a paper about what our beef was. Except I was supposed to write it about her, and she's supposed to write it about me. Well, she read me her paper, what she wrote, and I said, well, it's pretty good. You hit it about 70, 80%, maybe 70%. But there's a lot in there that was missing. I read mine
to her
with the therapist there, and she goes, that's exactly it. Exactly. He said it better than I would be able to say it myself.
Yeah, I know that.
Okay, so
he's good at that.
No, it's mind reading, and I've developed this mind reading to walk a mile in the other person's moccasins, so I can game that situation. If I know a person, if I know where they're walking in those moccasins, so I do that. Let's say with you, and you get the well-deserved moment of irrationality where it doesn't pan out with what I have read into your mind. And something happens, I can be devastated. Why? Because suddenly it's not that I don't do the house well. It's not that I don't know how to fix a foundation or pour concrete correctly. It's not because I'm going to not take care of settling clay stuff. That's not the issue. The issue is I'm unlovable. I'm unlovable. If I get a criticism about the way the people look in the drawing, the way I prepared the surface before painting, the direction I chose to go from here to there, if I get a criticism on that, suddenly the frame melts down, and all of the beauty of me devising ways of functioning in this world dissolves, and I'm confronted with the raw picture in the middle, which is, Phil, you are hopelessly unlovable. And
which is a death.
It's devastating.
It's devastating.
And what happens? Rage, depression, moods, shadows. All the shadows come forward and minister with their cups of blood, or whatever you want to call it, tears, diamond tears.
Yeah.
So
the frame is not a gift. Be not deceived by the most superficial aspects of this thought system, for these aspects enclose the whole, complete in every aspect. Death lies in its glittering gift. Let not your gaze dwell on the hypnotic gleaming of the frame. Look at the picture and realize that death is offered you. So that was the end. And I thought you covered it really nicely.
It's tough. I mean, I'd suggest take some time, because I'm telling you, even as I'm saying this, I can feel tears.
Yeah.
Just right behind the surface. If I went into it too much, because it's sad, man. It is sad to think about the picture we hold of ourselves and the things we have done to redeem ourselves on our own power.
Yeah.
Doesn't work.
Yeah.
It
The only
hasn't.
time you'll feel the loving presence is when you call on the presence to help. I mean, that's it. Okay.
You don't want to live a life there. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. We
Okay.
don't want to live a life with just the ego. It's just, it will remain
No
devastating.
matter how good of a fixer you are,
Yeah.
it ain't good enough.
Yeah, it's
ain't
not.
good enough. Paragraph 10. That is why the holy instant is so important in the defense of truth. The truth itself needs no defense, but you do need defense against your acceptance of the gift of death. When you who are truth accept an idea so dangerous to truth, you threaten truth with destruction, and your defense must now be undertaken to keep truth whole. The power of heaven, the love of God, the tears of Christ. Is that what it said? The tears of Christ and the joy of his eternal spirit are marshaled to defend you from your own attack.
Isn't that nice?
For you attack them, being part of them, and they must save you, for they love themselves. Did anybody notice that it said the tears of Christ?
Yeah.
Tell me about this. I've got to know.
Well, it's both.
Everybody else is powerful. How come Christ is crying?
Well, the power of heaven, the love of God, and the tears of Christ. I would say Christ's tears are both for you not recognizing who and what you really are. I would say that's what I feel when I hear the tears of Christ. His is like, you're so valuable, you're so beautiful, you're so amazing, and his tears would be there in recognition that you cannot see the truth of yourself.
I'm going to say you got black tears and you got white tears. Black tears are when I sense that inner part of that picture and I say to myself, Phil, you are unlovable and there's nothing you can do to bail yourself out. So the best you can do is create the best defenses frame around that and, learn martial arts, learn all home improvement skills, just be constantly, adept at everything you accomplish, everything, no failures allowed. And you do that to defend yourself from this sense of being absolutely unlovable. The black tears are if I go into that picture and go, wow, you are a sorry, sad sack, and that's too bad. Now, the white tears are the tears of Christ, meaning they are the tears of release, where the black tears turn into white tears, and you realize it was a lie.
Yeah.
You lied to yourself.
Yes.
You lied.
I agree 100%. I agree with that.
You lied to yourself. And now the tears go from black to white. You just realize, oh man, unlovable. No, that's not the problem. Don't you understand? That was a game. That was a gig. That was a scam that you've been playing just so that you would have the benefit of setting yourself up for this problematic way of trying to relate to other human beings and yourself, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, right.
No, you were lovable at the beginning. You don't have to shoot 80% from 25 feet out to be lovable. You don't have to fix the garage to be lovable.
That's right.
You don't have to know how to do anything to be lovable.
That's right.
But why? Because you are love.
Yes, you are love.
And this is the center picture that the Christ. And who is the Christ? The Christ is all of us unified.
Yes, it
and
is.
when I'm open and I dissolve the boundary of myself, like me and my little pitiful self that needs to learn home improvement, let's say.
And have your special relationships.
With
self and with others.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I think that's the way this is going to go down. Dissolve that technology. Dissolve that methodology.
Dissolve the frame.
Dissolve the frame. Let that go. And suddenly, those black tears turn to white tears, and you are love. You have to come to this point.
Yes.
And there was nothing along the way that you did or did not do to affect it.
Right.
And this is not other than a full frontal of the Holy Spirit in the happy dream, in the holy relationship, in the holy instant.
Yes.
It's a full frontal, right?
Yes.
So how does it work with you and, let's say, the one that you gave, the example you gave with...
Well, I mean, after I did have some ahas with all of that and stuff like that, but it wasn't until later in my life that I actually felt the full-on love of the presence. But even then, there was relief in actually recognizing. I mean, somehow by delving into the dark frame, or what's inside of the darkened frame. Or actually, it's a very glittery, wonderful frame, but there's a darkness held inside of it. Once you're willing to let go of the frame of all the things that held, and usually it's a crumbling, because the world is crumbling around you, because, well, death is upon you. Sometimes those moments happen, and they can be cathartic, where all of a sudden you're like, no. And a lightness starts to dawn back, and laughter starts to come back in little ways, and you realize, no, you haven't lost the self that you thought you lost or anything else. It's still intact. Now, did I find out that I was, did I go back to completely that lovable place? No, I was still vulnerable. I still had, issues in future relationships, that came up for me. Seemed to be my lot in life. But
no, the thing is,
I did have a moment of, kind of a revelation about who I was, and that, I didn't need to carry it that way.
When I understand the game I've played, the game stops. Mm-hmm. When I truly see and understand, and when I look and it's clear to me, and this is the Christ vision, it's not my own. When I recognize that game for what it is, it's all over.
Yeah. I would say that didn't happen right then.
Right. So, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. The snowball of pain and painful relationships and tragedies and traumas that go on and on and on means that's all the frame, and just a constant massaging and remodeling of the frame to preserve the picture on the inside.
Right. Of not being good enough.
Now, no, okay, but but that having been said, it ain't easy.
Yeah.
It ain't easy.
Right.
It ain't easy, because that lovelessness that I feel, the lack of being able to be loved, it can't be, it can be brushed away, as the Course says, like a snowflake,
Yeah.
Yes, okay, fine. But we have massive defenses against that process of deflecting.
Right.
And that I still am very, very invested in making myself lovable, just for the sheer egoic desire to accomplish something for myself.
I agree. And so the power of heaven and the love of God, the tears of Christ and the joy of his eternal Spirit are marshaled to defend you from your own attack. What a blessing is that? For you attack them, meaning the Christ, God, and the Holy Spirit, being part of them. That's what we are. We're part of them. And they must save you, for they love themselves. Because we're part of themselves.
Now, do you understand that what's happening here, it is beautiful and it is wonderful. It's also structural. It doesn't mean that God's up there saying, oh, we got a disaster down there, we got to do, disaster control. It's that
intervention. It's
that when I attack myself, the nature of this, when I want to reinforce that frame, that's, again, why the tears of Christ is, because, yes, O Son of God, you are free to play the game as long and as intensely as you want.
Right. And yet the love is just waiting there.
The tears of Christ are like the dam that are waiting to break and wash away all of your tension.
That's right.
And those tears are there, the tears of Christ. Why? Because Christ isn't happy about the game I'm playing.
I agree.
Christ, in fact, can suffer endlessly. That's why we got to save the world. Back to that. Got to save the world.
That's right. Okay, let's move on. Paragraph 11. The holy instant is a miniature of heaven, sent you from heaven. It is a picture, too, set in a frame. Yet if you accept this gift, you will not see the frame at all, because the gift can only be accepted through your willingness to focus all your attention on the picture. The holy instant is a miniature of eternity. It is a picture of timelessness set in a frame of time. If you focus on the picture, you will realize that it was only the frame that made you think it was a picture. Without the frame, the picture is seen as what it represents. For as the whole thought system of the ego lies in its gifts, so the whole of heaven lies in this instant, borrowed from eternity and set in time for you. There we are. The holy instant is a miniature of heaven, sent from heaven. When we're willing to, again, you gotta work on those willingness. There's a willingness in there always, because the gift can only be accepted through your willingness to focus all your attention on the picture, which is what you were saying. All of a sudden, in those devastating moments and everything else, you may have a revelation of what's really in the picture. And with that, the vulnerability to allow for sort of a, let's just say saying, I lay it all down because I don't know what else to do with it. There's kind of this moment of, what now? That's a moment where the holy instant can bring that heaven in. It's just like, it's just going to say that thought system, that the heaven. So the whole of heaven lies in this instant, borrowed from eternity and set in time for you. So in this one, the frame is time, and yet the holy instant is in it, and it's an eternal, it has an eternal sense to it.
It's also saying that, in a sense, what I get is that as long as I focus on the frame of this holy instant, as long as I maintain a focus, and the framing, I'm going to say off the top of my head, is the book, Course in Miracles, a spiritual practice, a meditation practice, the framing, the means, the methods of preserving this holy instant, this mind of God moment, timelessness. As long as I focus on that, I can compare the ego's world to the Holy Spirit's world. I have that available to me. I say, well, the ego offers this, the Holy Spirit offers this. Basically I have a couple of rectangles. Here's the Holy Spirit's with its nice thin frame and its content, and here's the ego. And so I'm comparing two things.
Right.
And what it's saying is, as long as you look at the frame around the Holy Spirit's thing, you are distracted into thinking that you're comparing two things that are comparable.
Right.
And that's why it's important to recognize and focus on the content of the so-called picture that the Holy Spirit offers, and realize the frame is irrelevant. You're not looking at, in a sense, you're looking at it, and I'm focusing on the frame. And I realize, oh, look at that. Isn't that an interesting picture of and I'm comparing what I see, a grassy place and a water fountain, or, a bird bath or whatever. And I'm saying, what a nice picture. Because I'm focusing on the fact that it's framed up, not realizing that it's a living entity. It's not a picture of anything. It's alive. The Holy Spirit isn't presenting me a picture. It's presenting me life.
Yes, it's presenting life and love.
And so it's really, in a sense, this is my words, it's not saying it here, it's like comparing a window frame to a picture frame. They're not comparable. One punches a hole into a world beyond.
Right.
And
that's a good point.
The other is just some crap that's made out of paint. So the illusion is fake, man. You built it. You created it. This other thing is life, and you're freed to go out into it. But you have to focus on what's beyond it and notice the living quality of what's in it, and not just the fact that it apparently, in our illusion, is a contained thing. Right. Does that make any sense?
Yes, it does. And when does that happen? When your defenses are down, and when you're willing, the willingness again, that to focus your attention on the picture, so the Holy Spirit can show you what's really there. And you're all love, and it loves you dearly. So that's what I have to say about that. Okay.
Paragraph 12. 2 gifts are offered you. Each is complete and cannot be partially accepted. Each is a picture of all that you can have, seen very differently. You cannot compare their value by comparing a picture to a frame. It must be the picture only that you compare, or the comparison is wholly without meaning.
Pictures.
The pictures that...
It must be the pictures only that you compare.
Okay, it must be the pictures only that you compare, or the comparison is wholly without meaning. Remember that it is the picture that is the gift, and only on this basis are you really free to choose. Look at the picture. Pictures, both of them. One is a tiny picture, hard to see at all beneath the heavy shadows of its enormous and disproportionate enclosure. The other is lightly framed and hung in light, lovely to look upon for what it is.
Ooh, we covered a lot of that.
Yeah.
So I think we can go. I think we can go on.
Yeah.
Okay. Paragraph 13. You who have tried so hard and are still trying to fit the better picture into the wrong frame and so combine what cannot be combined, accept this and be glad. These pictures are each framed perfectly for what they represent. One is framed to be out of focus and not seen. The other is framed for perfect clarity. The picture of darkness and of death grows less convincing as you search it out amid its wrappings. As each senseless stone that seems to shine from the frame of darkness is exposed to light, it becomes dull and lifeless, and ceases to distract you from the picture. And finally, you look upon the picture itself, seeing at last that unprotected by the frame, it has no meaning. Interesting. So, I mean, that's the ego's thing. Where if we can look at all the baubles that we put around our life to protect us, all the defenses, all the things and everything else, and say, what am I trying to hide? What am I trying to hide? And you look at it and it says, well, our own vulnerability, our own sense of...
In a sense, okay, everything I've done, everything you can do, every task you can set for yourself, to every to-do list in life, whether the to-do is I'm going to avoid life entirely or I'm going to spend all my time in front of playing a video game. Whatever your to-do list is, whether it seems nihilistic or extremely optimistic, all those to-do lists are, in a sense, a frame around something. And you need to, and what I hear it saying is you examine not the frame, because the frame's decent, man. It can be okay. You learned how to cook, or you learned how to sew, or you traveled the world, or
there's lots of
you've had these good relationships,
lots of experiences.
There's good stuff. You read some good books, etc. That's all good stuff in the frame. But you want to recognize, forget the frame, and look only at the picture of what it surrounds. And why did I learn to cook? Was it to deepen an appreciation of life, or was it because of some other thing? Was it, and it's not, analysis is paralysis, right?
Yeah.
But to an extent, it is a psychological tome, the book, two psychologists, and it's written in psychological language. So I think it's important, like, okay, if I take basketball, there are the accoutrements of basketball that I got into that, were full of darkness and shadows. If I look at the center picture of what I was really, really doing, I realized that that it makes the rest of it look like, in a sense, a waste of time. In other words, they don't really have anything to do with the center of the picture. Now, I'm going to go the center of the picture, meaning, let's say, to build myself up. Let's say I'm going to deal with society, and I structure it along the lines of basketball, and therefore it's controllable and all this other kind of thing. So let's say I do something in there to be lovable, as we talked about, and I look at the framing around it, the ability to play basketball in this or that way. Let's say just take that one, or the other things that I've done. The frame is irrelevant to what the picture is. It's irrelevant. And so when I look into the picture, I'm left with, was any of that valid? And this is what the Course wants. If I compare the content of, let's say, Christ's picture, the Holy Spirit's picture that it wants to show me, of light and life, of luminance, of the true nature of what I am, and I look at my own picture, let's isolate it, get rid of the frames, and just look at those two pictures. And I can see in there that the one that I chose is dull. Yeah. It's half-baked. It's illogical. The other one is worth pursuit, is worth embracing somehow.
Yeah, well, one of them is going to not make happy. Let's just put it that way. it's all about the relationship. At that point, it's the relationship with yourself, and you recognize, well, none of that made me happy.
Right.
None of what this frame made, all my defenses to try and protect my little self, did not make happy, because that's where we started off. That is the function of the relationships. And so
the frame is okay. I'm saying it because it says here you've tried to take the Holy Spirit's picture and shove it in the ego's frame.
Yes.
Why? Because the ego's frame is pretty cool. It's all right. It's got some work. You've done some stuff. You've gone some places. You've done some things. It was worth it, right? I liked the Doors or whatever, or whatever.
All of our likes and preferences.
We defend those things. We defend the frame.
Yes.
And we're asked to bravely forget the frame,
right.
And try to just focus as spiritual practice. Because the deal is the construction, the constructs, I only stand to benefit if I can embrace the light bright picture, abandon the frame of the other as a storehouse of those shadow aspects,
right.
of those defensive aspects. I go with the light bright. I'm not going to lose the light bright aspects that went into building that huge, thick, gaudy frame.
I would say that it probably transforms all of what we call our past histories and everything else into a different perspective of what really went on during each one of those things that we made ourselves little in. And so there was many more aspects there that the Holy Spirit can shine on. It said that all the holy relationships, that there's something real behind all of it that we're not seeing. So, in the very beginning, when it was saying to make happy, it was talking about that there's a real relationship that we're not seeing, because we've overlaid it with all that stuff that happens to be in that very gaudy frame with a very small picture that's hard to see in the middle of it, because we've so filled up these protective devices on and around that thing that we think we need to defend, to put the fences up, defense, put the fences up around to support the ego. So that's the ego down in there. It doesn't want you to know how little you really think about yourself. And then the Holy Spirit, once you actually take a look at it, and if you say, can that really be real? The Holy Spirit has a moment that it can give you the holy instant and says, of course not, that's not real. The truth of who and what you are is lovelier than beyond you could ever imagine.
Just really losing in a way, losing the frame or ignoring the frame is losing that baggage.
Yes. And also, it doesn't frighten you anymore. It doesn't look like it's something that I need to defend. That's all I can say. Okay.
The other picture is lightly framed, for time cannot contain eternity. There is no distraction here. The picture of heaven and eternity grows more convincing as you look at it. And now, by real comparison, a transformation of both pictures can at last occur.
There we go.
And each is given its rightful place when both are seen in relation to each other. The dark picture brought to light is not perceived as fearful, but the fact that it is just a picture is brought home at last. And what you see there, you will recognize as what it is, a picture of what you thought was real, nothing more. For beyond this picture, you will see nothing.
Right.
So maybe go on and read 15.
I think so, because
I think that they're complementary.
Yes, I do too. Paragraph 15. The picture of light, in clear-cut and unmistakable contrast, is transformed into what lies beyond the picture. As you look on this, you realize that it is not a picture, but a reality.
There you go. Right.
This is no figured representation of a thought system, but the thought itself. What it represents is there. The frame fades gently, and God rises to your remembrance, offering you the whole of creation in exchange for your little picture, wholly without value and entirely deprived of meaning.
I kind of said that a little while ago.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
In other words, the more you think about this, it's a false comparison of comparing the reality with my idea about reality.
Yeah, of self. You know?
So my idea about reality is one removed.
Mm-hmm.
Reality itself is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Byron Katie's work, which she does in the 4 questions is that true? Is that true? Is that true? You know, basically unraveling the ideas I have about a situation. I have ideas about a situation. What you're confronted with is that you are in a situation.
Mm-hmm.
And what's most oppressive, as she says in her, she says, I find that people are upset by what they think about something, and they're rarely, if ever, upset about what's actually going on.
Right. I agree.
So in that sense, life itself, if seen directly and seen for what it is, and seen, I need the gift of grace, I need the Holy Spirit to help me to see life. Because I have a partial view, I can't see the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the miracle is a conflagration of truths that rush in an emotional moment of not revelation, but that holy instant. It opens reality up. Not because I'm seeing all of the stuff that the Holy Spirit sees, but I get the benefit of all the stuff that the Holy Spirit sees. In other words, my brain is not big enough to contain a whole picture. Okay? My brain isn't big enough to, in other words, I can't say, oh, World War III was okay because of X, Y, Z. I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a feeling, and I have a holy instant of peace and of love about that situation, whatever it is, however dark it might seem, because I'm given the proverbial download of truth of how what I'm viewing partially as a disaster, because that's what I've always done. The picture that I created with the thick frame around it has always been some cobbled together picture of what I thought my life was about without benefit of the light. And the Holy Spirit is saying, if you look at the other, you'll realize you're not looking at an idea of anything. Mm-hmm. You're looking at the thing itself.
I mean, it practically says offer it to the light. All of the darkened frame, the picture inside it and everything, just offer it to light, and you realize that it doesn't have a reality. That was at the end of paragraph 14. For beyond this picture, you will see nothing. There's nothing more. It wasn't real. You thought what you thought was real, it wasn't. That's the ego's. Once it's brought to the light. At any rate, it helps the happy dream to come in and the holy instant to come in, because you're willing to say, "Oh, I thought all of this was me," God goes, it kind of does the Etch-a-Sketch thing or whatever it is, not, shakes it up and goes, "No."
Well, and as this is the course A Course in Miracles, this whole section on the pictures is it's another way of, no pun intended, framing the miracle.
Yes.
Framing the holy instant. It's just another way of examining the same thing.
I find this is, like, in this particular section right here, the Course doesn't use a lot of metaphors, like real things that you can grasp and look at in your mind. You can actually form pictures. A lot of times it's very symbolic.
Right, but here,
and it wants you to really understand which picture that you're focusing on and how you can have it move to where you can see the truth of who and what you are. So, I mean, I like it because it gives me something something I can grasp to create a picture in my mind, of one that's gaudy, one that has a little unformed in the middle of it. Any idea of the self as a little thing or some grandiosity that thought it could cover up its littleness. And the other is light bright. And it says, bring the other one to the light bright, and you'll see that it doesn't really hold. Doesn't hold any gravitas. There's nothing there.
Well, think about those fantastic. It's a shift just to try to understand some of what's going on here. The dilemma that we're in, the paradox, is that a cuckoo clock. It's a clock. That's all it is, and but it's got little guys with hammers and elves and gnomes, and they come out at certain hours and they bang on these bells, and then birds come out and go cuckoo, cuckoo, and all this kind of stuff. And then all this stuff happens, and you're astounded And almost waiting, the passage of time is such a celebration with the cuckoo clock that you look at it and you go, and you don't really care if it's keeping time or not. You don't care, it can be off. It doesn't matter. The whole point of it is the cuckoo clock. You don't care about time. But it is supposedly, at basis, a time measuring device.
Right.
You want to keep up with the time. That's what it's for. And so when you really, really look at the cuckoo clock and you go,
it's very elaborate for keeping up with time.
What's
the purpose?
What is this about? And you start to wonder because, in the end, it used to be people kept up with time. The sun's straight up, you got noon, know. So in my own life and all the things I've done, all the successes and victories and the failures are a little bit like that cuckoo clock in a way. Mm-hmm. It's just been a lot of stuff built on top of an illusion. Now, there's no way to gain...
It's kind of funny that's called a cuckoo clock, and it talks about that one frame being part of your insanity. Talks about the ego's insanity.
Oh, yeah, the cuckoo clock, right, the cuckoo picture. Forget the clock, it's a cuckoo picture. So, but the thing is with my cuckoo picture, I can't really judge it very well because I'm distracted by the frame, and like the cuckoo clock, I'm entranced by the amount of effort and whatnot that went into this celebration of the time space and what you can do with materials. And that's what I did. The only way to judge it, if you want to talk about judgment, is comparing it to life. That's the simplicity, the frameless frame of light, of lightness, of life as content, of direct reality, of luminance, and to compare those and see what's really, really there so that I can get away, so I'm not really comparing, let's say, a cuckoo clock to a Timex.
Right.
Timex being, simpler and more efficient and whatnot. That's not what we're comparing. We're comparing a cuckoo clock to a lack of time space. We're comparing it to the timeless state.
Right.
In other words, it would be the cuckoo clock, not to drag this out too far. I get hung up, man. But anyway, the cuckoo clock as chronos, the Greek word chronos. It's the march of time. Saturn, boom, 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 and that's that's equivalent of that picture. It's a
I know, and full with all kinds of little bobbles and things going on.
It's an object with weight.
Yes.
Now, kairos is an inner quality of time. I experience kairos. It's not like, how long did that bird chirp out there? It's like the bird chirped and you're brought into a now, you're brought into a present. And so the bird is locking you into time, but in the sense of time being meaningless.
Right.
And this is the difference between these pictures. So you got the cuckoo clock and the bird, you got the two pictures.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's like watching the waves on the ocean, and you don't really, the time is not really part of it.
Paragraph 16. As God ascends into his rightful place and you to yours, you will experience again the meaning of relationship and know it to be true, to make happy. Let us ascend in peace together to the Father by giving him ascendance in our minds. We will gain everything by giving him the power and the glory and keeping no illusions of where they are. They are in us through his ascendance. What he has given is his. It shines in every part of him as in the whole. The whole reality of your relationship with him lies in our relationship to one another. The holy instant shines alike on all relationships, for in it they are one. For here is only healing, already complete and perfect. For here is God, and where he is, only the perfect and complete can be.
Okay, God ascends into his rightful place and you to yours, and you will experience again the meaning of relationship and know it to be true.
Okay, so God ascending to his place. What I hear there I was going to ask you what you think about it, and I
Yeah.
do want to know what you think about it. But what I hear
It
there,
asks us to ascend in peace together to the Father.
in all the stuff I've ever said about the basketball, about stuff I've written, the Cub Scouts and the nailing competition, or the first girlfriend, or all that kind of stuff. Where was God in any of that? There was no concept of a God involved. It wasn't, not that I'm supposed to be running around with my hands folded all the time, but notice who's running this show.
Right.
Who's running the show? At least be aware that somebody's running the show, because if I'm stuck running the show, then it's nihilism.
Well, most of the time, our egos are running the show, and so we're left with the dark picture, and we'll feel lousy about ourselves or someone else about the situation. That's not the holy relationship.
Somebody will lose.
Yeah, somebody will lose. There's always somebody who gets and somebody who doesn't. There's somebody who loses. But to ascend to our rightful place with the Father, it says the second line was, let us ascend in peace together to the Father by giving him ascendance in our minds. So it's like, where is God ascending? It's a because we're one with him, and the Christ needs to be owned by us, or this, that I am a son of God. We ascend with him in our minds. We will gain everything by giving him the power and the glory and keeping no illusions where they are. So, I mean, again, to me, you're handing it over to the power and the glory. All my illusions, I have to kind of just go, here's my old frame. Here you go. It's all the stuff I've ever done that I felt lousy about other people or myself, or other situations, how the world did not meet up to my standards, or I didn't meet up to the world's standards. Just there's a lot of, where it doesn't quite say hand it over, but these final paragraphs are usually about, what do you want to hold on to? Or what do you want to let go of, so that you can have the real picture? Because you can't, so long as I think that my gaudy picture and my little self that's inside of it is more important to me, that I want to keep a fence around. Do you have anything to say about that?
Well, only, I'm preoccupied with the way that I've heard this in other places. There's a line out of the Gospel of Ramakrishna where Swami Vivekananda is singing this song that Ramakrishna loves, and it's to God alone is the victory. To God alone is the victory. To God alone is the victory. And then again in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, when he's instructing Arjuna, he says, offer the fruit of everything you do to God. In other words, you're free to do whatever you want. Just don't accept the benefits for yourself. Don't, you did a good job somewhere. And this is structural. It's not about being holy in a pious sense or any of that kind of stuff. It's the way we're built. We have to shed ourselves of the good things that we do and the good things that happen to us, as well as the bad things that we do and the bad things that we have to shed those things as quickly as possible, so that we can be as close to a direct relationship with life as possible and not living in those shadow constructs.
I agree. Yes.
So that's what I hear it saying here about God ascending to his rightful place. Because I feel, I don't know what you heard, but when I hear this, I immediately say, well, I do some stuff. It's like that joke by John Bradshaw where the farmer goes by the guy's field and he says, hey, John, I like what you and God are doing out here on your land. And he says, yeah, man, you should have seen it when God had it by himself.
Yeah.
There's that tendency to think that if I don't do it myself, it's not going to happen. That's not the point. The point is, who do you give the fruits of this to?
Right. That is true. Yeah, it's all, according to Christian, thing, it's all supposed to be for the glory of God. It's all for the glory of God. And what is the glory of God? It's the glory of the holy self as well. So what we don't realize is that when we hand it over to the glory of God, that we also
we glorify.
It becomes a glorification.
And you don't glorify yourself.
No.
You glorify your orb.
Yeah, the whole thing.
The sonship.
The sonship. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Good enough.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot.